You hear it all the time from Republicans, practically every day. Democrats, they say, are the real racists. Senator Robert Byrd was a Klan recruiter. FDR interned the Japanese. The Democratic Party supported slavery and created Jim Crow. That argument is a staple of conservative Twitter. It is factually true, yet it's also misleading. Yes, the leaders of the Democratic Party are committed racists. They are the driving force behind racial division and hatred in this country. There's no denying that. But their racism has nothing to do with what previous generations of Democrats did. Nancy Pelosi is not responsible for the sins of Bull Connor and Orville Faubus any more than you're guilty for the sins of your grandparents. In this country, we hold citizens responsible only for the choices that they make personally. You cannot be indicted for other people's crimes. This is not North Korea. We don't punish people for their bloodlines. Conservatives, of all people, should know this. It is the basis of all Western justice. The Democratic Party is racist because right now, today, Democrats are pushing the abhorrent lie that moral value corresponds to skin color. Some races, they tell us, are inherently good, others are inherently bad. They're saying that, and that is the very definition of racism. It is sick, it's poison. Yet Democrats are saying it out loud every single day, in every venue, at full volume. The most popular book on the left right now is a demented piece of pseudoscience entitled White Fragility. It was written by a wild-eyed race-monger known as Robin DiAngelo. 10 years from now, we'll look back in horror at the thought that so many decent people would read something this vicious and crazy as white fragility and read it openly in public places with no shame. That's a bad sign. How would you feel if your seatmate on a United flight cracked open the protocols of the Elders of Zion? You'd be shocked. And yet, thanks to encouragement from Democratic leaders, it is happening everywhere. White fragility is now required reading in schools and in boardrooms. Corporations are internalizing its message, its sick message. Uber, for example, has announced that for the rest of the year, it will waive delivery fees on its food delivery app, but only for black-owned restaurants. Postmates, its competitors, announced the very same policy. Businesses are receiving favorable treatment based solely on the skin color of their owners. Haven't we seen that somewhere before? Yes, we have. And we passed an entire Civil Rights Act to stop it. That was more than 50 years ago. Yet thanks to the Democratic Party, it is happening again. The Justice Department, meanwhile, is doing nothing about this. California's Attorney General hasn't done anything either, despite the fact that Uber is based in California. And the company's race-based policy violates the state's Civil Rights Act flagrantly. But California Democrats no longer believe in ending racial discrimination. They are affirmatively for racial discrimination. As of tonight, the California State Constitution says this, quote, "The state shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, or public contracting," end quote. That's the clearest statement of equality imaginable. Right now in California, the state must treat everyone equally regardless of skin color. By the way, that's the law in every state. It's federal law, and it should be. It's the promise of America. But Democrats don't believe it anymore. They just voted overwhelmingly to repeal California's anti-discrimination amendment. They are re-legalizing racial discrimination. Keep in mind, this isn't 1950s Alabama. It's California, our biggest state right now. You'd think maybe Republicans could mention that once in a while. Most Americans don't even know it's happening, but it is happening. And because it is unchallenged, suddenly racist thinking is everywhere on the left. 2 weeks ago, Lincoln County, Oregon issued a requirement that all white residents wear masks. Non-white residents were exempted from the order. The county didn't say anything about segregating water fountains, but it was just a matter of time. When bad publicity forced officials to rewrite the order, they blamed white racism. Americans were immoral, they suggested, for not welcoming laws that punish citizens on the basis of their skin color. We could go on. This kind of stuff is everywhere. You see it. Everyone knows it. Nobody says anything about it. So in the absence of any principled pushback, the race haters get bolder, crazier, more obviously dangerous. In late May, Charles Blow of the New York Times wrote an entire op-ed about how, quote, white women, this is a quote, white women use themselves as instruments of terror. Imagine the paper running something like that about any other group. Well, you can't imagine it, obviously. The FBI would launch an investigation that day. But of course, there was no FBI investigation. So it continued. Last week, the global opinions editor at the Washington Post, a mediocrity called Karen Attiah, attacked white women as a group for their, quote, lies. We're quoting, "White women are lucky," Attiah wrote. "The weird is calling them Karens and not calling for revenge." Revenge? What does that mean? You know what it means. Karen Attiah is threatening racial violence in the pages of Jeff Bezos' newspaper. You'd think that would be newsworthy, maybe a little more newsworthy than something that happened during the Confederacy. Yet once again, silence from the Democrats, the real racist people on Twitter. America was founded on the promise of equality for all, period. That is still our law, state and federal, and it must remain the goal that we fight for, period. Without that, we have nothing. Conservatives have an obligation to call out race hatred in all its forms, no matter who it is aimed at, wherever we find it. And right now, today, July 6, 2020, we find it in the Democratic Party.